I want to welcome everybody back to the YouTube channel. Today we're continuing on Project Orange Blaze. We're going to be working on getting the long block assembled, getting our front cover on there, balancer, timing pointer set, work on getting the heads on there, and getting them torqued down, and then we can measure for pushrod length. That way we can get pushrods ordered, and when they come in we can get the rocker arms, valve train, all that kind of stuff finished, set up, and get the lash set. So I'll get you set up. We'll start with getting the timing cover on there, then the balancer and timing pointer. That way we can still verify TDC with our timing pointer and get that set to 0 while we can still access the piston easily. And then we'll get the heads on. Make sure to comment, like, subscribe, click the little bell so you get notified. Check us out at Page Racing Engines for all your merchandise needs. We got plenty of shirts, sweatshirts, hats, all kinds of tumblers, things like that up there. So visit us to get all that kind of stuff. We are in the process of uploading a new shirt, so make sure to check that out when it goes live. I'll put that on social media as well, and we'll get started. Alright, so we got our front cover on there, we got our balancer on there, and the timing pointer. We've got it set TDC. We're getting ready to go through. We'll put our head studs in, get our head gaskets on there, and then we'll get our heads on there and torqued. That way we can get our intake on there, kind of get it marked for port matching, and then we can also get our rocker arms and everything on there. That way we can measure for push rods. That way we can get those ordered, because they may take few days to a few weeks depending on what they've got available in stock. So we'll set you up, we'll go through that, and we'll see you in a bit. Alright, so you guys just see me put some Prussian blue onto the heads. We had a few studs that we put in to be able to help align the manifold, and we set the manifold on there so that we can transfer the ports of the heads to the intake so that we can port match these intakes. It's a little bit easier to do it this way, especially with the LS stuff. Just the way it sits down on there, it uses the O-ring so we can get the transfer straight from the head to the intake. So this side, I've already wiped that Prussian blue off and kind of scribed our lines. I still got to go back and do our radiuses. I don't know if you can really see that too well in the light. But this one side's already done. And this is kind of what it looked like. I've already scribed through it, so it looks a little messy, but you can get an idea of kind of the shape of the ports and stuff. So we'll finish scribing it and getting the radiuses in and everything. Then we can get set up. We'll do our port matching and blend the runners, make sure we got the taper and all that right in there. And we should be good to go on the intake, and then we can send it off for powder coating. Alright, so we got our intake port match and everything, got all that kind of situated, got our runner taper where we want it. Can I show you right now? We got it kind of mocked up on the engine, just test fitting everything. So it's set up, ready to go. So I'll get the intake off, show you kind of the porting that we done on it and getting it matched up and all. At this point, the intake's ready to be sent off for powder coating. Next, we'll work on getting our rockers set up so we can measure pushrod length. Also get our oil pan on there. And then we also got to do our crank bolt because we never got that put in. As you can see, we kind of got everything kind of matched out based on our scribe lines. So that matches the port nicely. Went all the way through our runners, got all the kind of taper and everything that we wanted as far as cross-sectional area goes. Alright, so we got our rocker stands on there. You see me kind of get them set up on there and checking the height of the stand to the valve. So that's kind of what Crowder includes in their kits, is a little height checking tool, so you can check the stand height and be able to set that depending on what your lift is. So I kind of show you that. We did have to adjust and add a shim to it. The stands were just too low for the valves and everything that are in here. So I'll get you set up and kind of show you how we're checking it with Crowder set up. And I'll walk you through that and kind of show you their instructions and what it says. So Crowder includes this little shaft here that takes the place of your rocker arm, and then this little tool here. And you just kind of set it up like they've got shown here, going from the tip of the valve over to that bar, and they should touch if you got 750 thousandths of valve lift. Now if you're less, you'll have to raise the stand, and if you're more than 750, you'll have to lower the stand. And they go through showing you that you basically adjust half the difference in your lift. So we've got just over 750 at 775 and 765 on the exhaust. But wanted to kind of see where we're at just without any kind of shims or anything in there before we go through and try to do any kind of shimming. So with no shims, it did put it about 45 thousandths low. So we added their shims, which are about a 35 thousandths, and that gets us almost touching with the their checking tool. So that puts us just below, or since we're just over 750 lift, it adds that little bit of spacing where we lowered the stand. So we can now take and the bolts back out, make sure we got Loctite sealer and all that kind of stuff on there, go through and torque them all, and then we'll get our rocker arms on there and a checking push rod so we can measure push rod lengths. Alright, so you see me just go through measuring for push rods. So we got our checker push rod in there, got our rocker arm tightened down on there, and then we can run our checker push rod out longer until we get the rocker arm to our set lash. So I just pulled that out and got it measured, and I'll kind of show you. We've got our checker push rod in a set of calipers, and they measured at 8-inch 180 thousandths. So we'll probably go for 8-inch 175. That should still give us plenty of adjustment because we set it with 1.5 turns out on our adjuster. So we can go a little longer if we need to, but we can also go a little shorter on the push rod. We try to stay within 25 thousandths, no more than 50 of what we measure. So we'll get those ordered, and when they come in, we can get our rock arms set on there and torqued for good. Well, we got our push rods in. We just got them cleaned. I'll kind of show you. These we get from Trend Performance. They're 7/16. They do have a double taper on each end, and they are lasered with the length and wall thickness. So I'll run y'all through the process. We'll get them put in, get all the rockers on there. We'll set lash, and that'd be just about it for this long block. Got our push rods in, our rockers on there and torqued. I'm going to take you through how we set lash. So I do one at a time. and also we'll mark them so that we know that we've already set that one. But process we use, when the intake valve starts to close, we set our exhaust lash. And then when the exhaust valve starts to open, we can set our intake. This just helps verify that the lifter is on the base circle. A lot of these beer cams and all our race stuff, you get to have so much duration that you can't really set them how a lot of people do with a normal street performance build, where if both lifters are down and both valves are closed, you can set it. Because all these big duration cams, one may still be slightly open, and then you may not catch that. So we always want to make sure that intake starts to close, we set our exhaust. When the exhaust starts to open, we set our intake. So I'll walk you through that process, kind of show you on a few of these, and then we'll continue on. Alright, so as you've seen, the intake was starting to close, so we went over to our exhaust rocker, run it down. It was a little tight, so I backed the adjuster off a little bit. Got a feeler gauge in there and kind of run the adjuster down until I had a little bit of drag on that. Run the nut down and then torqued it with the LSM torque wrench made for doing these rocker arms. And then I just double check with the feeler gauge after it's torqued. And sometimes you do have to adjust a little bit, and that's what you see me doing there. So I got a little bit of drag on there. Exhaust rocker set, went ahead and paint marked it. So we'll continue on and do the rest of the rockers. Pretty much going to do it for the long block. Once we get intake and valve cover stuff like that back from powder coating, we continue on with that. We're still waiting on our dry sump pump and bracket to show up. So once we get that in, we'll walk you through setting that up and getting all the plumbing and everything done on it. And then we'll be pretty much done with the engine and ready for the dyno. So thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.